here's Brody Brazil.
In making this video, I promise I am not trying to lead you on. I'm not trying to point you in the wrong direction or promise you something that's not going to happen. I just want you to be aware of a hypothetical that's being discussed that still has a lot of twists and turns, but potentially an NFL-sized stadium in the San Diego market, technically in Chula Vista, and technically they're calling it a soccer-first stadium, but could seat up to 50,000 as part of this sports and entertainment complex that's being considered. So I am not here to say that the NFL's return to San Diego is right around the corner. However, obviously, as a Californian and somebody who's seen a team relocate for not the best of reasons, I'm very much rooting for San Diego to get an NFL team back. I think that market deserves it, can easily support it. They shouldn't have lost the Chargers in the first place. I am biased in that way, but I'm also telling you here, these developments don't necessarily mean anything yet. Watch the coverage.
Okay, so take a look at this. This is what could be coming to Chula Vista's Bayfront.
The Port of San Diego just listened to the initial pitch during its meeting this afternoon. NBC7 South Bay reporter Joe Little was there. He spoke to the players. He joins us now with some details about what looks like a pretty elaborate sports and entertainment complex, Joe.
Joe, you're live.
It's very elaborate. It's called Pangia. A little more than an hour ago, the Port of San Diego commissioners unanimously approved an exclusive negotiating agreement with the developers on this sports and entertainment complex. Let's be clear, nothing is promised, nothing is set in stone, but it is a wide-eyed proposal that promises to bring thousands of jobs and millions of dollars in revenue to the South Bay.
Roll the tape.
We believe this new proposal is something that's very viable.
Viable for a piece of Chula Vista's Bayfront that hasn't had much going on since 2013, when the infamous South Bay power plant was imploded to make way for the Chula Vista Bayfront master plan. That was 12 years ago.
Right now, the property is really nothing. It's surrounded by a chain link fence and no one can go in.
Tuesday, a group of developers proposed changing that to the Port of San Diego, which owns the Chula Vista property. They want to build this, Pangia, a 124-acre sports and entertainment complex that would include an elite tennis center, a water polo academy, a pop-stroke golf course co-owned by Tiger Woods, 3 hotels, shopping, office space, and an IMAX theater.
You know, I think from the beginning, we set out to do something that was truly historic.
Of particular interest is this stadium. To be clear, the Virginia-based developers say this is merely a placeholder for Phase 2. They say it could be a future stadium for anything from cricket to, yes, football, but that would be far down the road.
It simply has the bandwidth to do things, you know, from professional to collegiate to live entertainment. A lot of things could happen there.
The proposal comes on the heels of the grand opening of Gaylord Pacific. The $1.3 billion resort opened in May and promised to be the anchor for future development along Chula Vista's Bayfront. That may include Pangia.
And this is something that not just the South County needs, but the entire San Diego County needs.
Chula Vista Mayor John McCann says Pangia stands to be a windfall for the South Bay, promising construction jobs, regular jobs, and millions in economic revenue.
Of course.
Job creation is phenomenal. The tax creation is phenomenal. The tourism potential is terrific.
Yeah, but more about that stadium. Let's go.
So what's next? In about 6 months, the port and the developers are going to come back together to discuss what they threw against the wall and what stuck. Then they'll sort of go from there and start hammering down maybe some details. We will follow those steps every step along the way. Reporting live from Middletown, Joe Little, NBC7.
All right, Joe, thank you for that report. Oh, by the way, thank you to our friends at NBC San Diego for hopefully letting us use that footage. I thought they told the story best. Here's an overhead view of that property, and it is kind of amazing that this is on the waterfront, and it's now just kind of open space. I'm sure it's a natural habitat to a lot of animals. Now, what could that mean for construction here and eventually putting a 50,000-seat stadium on this site or developing the whole thing? Will there be any environmental challenges? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that site, like just north of it right there, is where the Gaylord resort just went. I think this is an older photo. By the way, that hotel looks fantastic. I know the Gaylord chain of resorts and properties are very highly regarded. I've been to one of them in Nashville. fantastic. So I'm sure this one in Chula Vista is also quite awesome. In terms of the location here, now just in case you're not familiar with San Diego and Chula Vista, let me point out there's downtown San Diego, right across from Coronado Island, and obviously the airport is right there. Chula Vista is a bit south, kind of down the shoreline, so to speak. All right, as for this Pangia project, I'll give you some more details here. It's 124 acres, previously centered around an MLS stadium. That was an idea, but MLS decided not to go into San Diego. So there was an initial idea sports-wise for this site. They've kind of scrapped that, and now they've moved on to this more of a broad sports sense. You saw like a swimming center and a Tiger Woods-themed golf center, or a Tiger Woods involved and inspired golf center. So they're trying to diversify what they're doing here on this site. Now they say it'll be anchored by that tennis complex and a water polo academy. So they're really trying to make sure that everything gets included here. Also, as you saw, multiple hotels and retail and an IMAX, movie theater, and mini golf, again, designed by Tiger Woods. But that 50,000-seat stadium, which is part of Phase 2, it is envisioned, as they say, for the second phase. That's kind of the big thing up in the air here, because if you're in San Diego and you have any hope of getting the NFL back, one of the things you need, which was the challenge before in keeping the Chargers, is a stadium site and an ultimate stadium development. And again, I just covered it. All of this is south of the newly constructed Gaylord Pacific Resort. But on to the takeaways here, right? So we know what this project is, and there's not too much more to tell you about it because details are literally that broad right now. They're not so far along in this process to speak confidently about here's what we do, here's how we do this. Is there a connection with the NFL? And the developers here have not even really talked about the NFL specifically, and I think that's a great strategy by them. They don't want to bring on all of that noise and all of that extra conversation, but people in San Diego are speculating, like, could this be the location, the site, the opportunity, and the developer to get this done? My thoughts on this entire project, like if it's just a tennis center and a water polo academy and some golf things and an IMAX and a hotel, like this project is not going to see much opposition, much public spectacle. It's not going to see a lot of back and forth, and it just might happen. Phase 1 might happen without a hitch. But the moment and the second you add an NFL-sized stadium to the conversation, that's when everybody's ears perk up and all the light bulbs in their head turn on. And for some people, the smoke comes out of their ears. That's when the conversation intensifies. That's when there's a lot of back and forth and public funding and how do we pay for an NFL team? And so that's my question here. If San Diego really wants the NFL back, is it wise for anybody to take this route of building, even if the stadium is not meant for an NFL team, like kind of what happened in St. Petersburg back in the late 80s, early 90s. They built a stadium before they had a baseball team. And then they tried to get a bunch of different teams, the White Sox, the Mariners, the Giants were basically out the door to Tampa. They couldn't get any of those done. Eventually they got expansion. Is it wise to build the stadium before you actually have an assurance of having a team? I don't know the answer to that. Now, could they use that 50,000-seat stadium for something else in San Diego? I guess. But do they really need a 50,000-seat stadium when you already have, a baseball outdoor venue? You've got the replacement of what happened for San Diego State over with, I call it Jack Murphy Stadium still, Qualcomm. So there's a stadium out there, kind of in that little inland valley. Is it wise to build this grand 50,000-seat stadium and just hope that the NFL is going to show up? Now, the NFL hasn't seriously discussed expansion, and there's something else I want to mention on that in just a second too. You look at the NBA. I mean, expansion is inevitable. Las Vegas and Seattle, like the NBA kind of has the writing on the wall. Baseball has talked about expansion and thought they were close to expansion with the A's and Rays situations, but now there's a CBA that needs to be negotiated, and there's probably going to be a work stoppage. So expansion is very much, I think, back burner for Major League Baseball. The NHL has brought up expansion. They've kind of shelved it for the minute, but they're already at 32 teams. They've talked about Atlanta, potentially Houston, a couple other markets. It seems most likely that by, mid-2030s, there's going to be a couple more NHL teams. But the NFL is the league that probably could expand easiest. Like they've got the business for it. The expansion fee would be astronomical. They're the ones that could probably pull this off the quickest, and yet they're not the ones maybe talking about this the most. They haven't really seriously discussed it. Like it hasn't come up at the highest of levels to any serious degree. But also this, even if it did, what puts San Diego ahead of Mexico City, hypothetically? What puts San Diego ahead of any European city or any other kind of like exotic place that the league would consider expansion? My point is, you run into this trap of leagues looking at places they've already been and saying, well, we've done that chapter. Let's start something new and fresh, and let's grow the audience. And there still might be Chargers fans in San Diego. I don't believe that there's a large degree of them. There might be some, but I think San Diego deserves it. I'm just wondering if the NFL feels that way about San Diego, or if they are so much more poised and focused on going outside the country, outside the continent for their next round of expansion teams. Because quite honestly, I think the NFL, unlike a lot of other leagues, could easily do that. So again, very initial stages of a project that we still don't even know if this is going to exist, let alone would it have an NFL-sized stadium. Like, they're talking about a stadium as a placeholder, but if you look at the acreage, you look at this project, I mean, yeah, it's got the canvas, it's got the blank slate for something just like this to happen in San Diego. Question is, how does the timing work out on this? And maybe the timing's great. Maybe they do phase one, and maybe that's totally separate from the stadium, and then maybe 5 years down the road, NFL is ready, they can have these talks, and maybe they're ready to strike phase two on the project, and the NFL is ready to consider it. I don't know. I just wanted to point that out and address something that you might be interested in. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. Does it likely happen? Does it unlikely? Is it unlikely to happen? That's a better way to put it. Also, thumbs up while you're down there helps me, the video, and the channel. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you back here next time.